Alvin's Quest. Of all the animals in Africa, Alvin the aardvark was the most humble. He knew that the other animals thought him ugly and odd, with his bald tail, big ears, and funny eating habits. So when he returned home just before dawn, covered in earth but pleasantly full of tasty, tickly ants, he was surprised to find a note pinned to his burrow door. "Dear Alvin," read the note, "I wish you to discover who is first among all the animals. I shall return tonight for your answer, the Lord of all animals." Alvin was, to say the least, very surprised. He knew that the Lord of all animals was fond of giving his subjects tasks to do. However, he never dreamed that such an unimportant creature as himself would ever be chosen. "Oh my goodness," thought Alvin, "he wants my answer by tonight!" By this time, the sun was coming up over the mountains, and Alvin was feeling that it was time for bed. Aardvarks are night animals, and Alvin had a very busy night digging out a particularly large and delicious nest of white termites. He was full, he was tired, he needed his sleep. By tonight, thought Alvin again, a little more crossly this time, and he waddled off back into the jungle to think deeply. Now, aardvarks are not only odd-looking animals, but they are not very bright. The very worst time of all for a not very bright aardvark to do some deep thinking is 9 o'clock on a hot morning when he should be curled up fast asleep. By 10 o'clock Alvin had nodded off 3 times, and was no nearer to working out who was the first of all the animals. He was just dozing off for the 4th time when slithering along the jungle path came Boris the boa constrictor. It was probably just as well for Alvin that Boris, too, was full of breakfast, otherwise Alvin might never have found the answer. As it was, Boris was so surprised to see an aardvark sitting in the middle of a jungle path in the middle of the morning that most of him slid to a very sudden stop. "Well, well," he sighed, in a soft voice that sent shivers right to the tip of Alvin's hairless tail. "What have we here?" "Please," stammered Alvin, "it's only me, Alvin the aardvark. The Lord of all animals has sent me to discover who is first of all the animals. The trouble is, I don't know where to start." The big snake laughed silently, his smooth, scaly skin rippling with amusement. "You are fortunate, little friend," he breathed, "for you have found him." "Who?" squeaked Alvin. Who?" he repeated in a firmer voice, trying not to let Boris see his fear. "Why, the first of all the animals," rasped Boris, a little crossly. "Which creature is longer than I, or more beautiful?" he added, looking back at his patterned coils admiringly. When he looked back again, Alvin had completely disappeared. All the world seemed to be asleep as Alvin dragged his hot and thirsty body out of the shelter of the jungle into the glare of the midday sun. "Boris is the longest of the Lord's animals," he thought aloud, "but does that make him the first?" "Of course not," boomed a voice so loud that Alvin tumbled backwards head over heels with fright. "I am." Alvin found himself looking very closely at what appeared to be a gray, wrinkled tree trunk. In fact, it was a leg attached to a large and very proud-looking elephant. "Oh, it's you, Ernest," sighed Alvin. "It is indeed," trumpeted Ernest, "and it is quite obvious that the Lord meant me. I am the biggest and heaviest of all the creatures, so I must be the first." "Oh, yes, quite. Thank you, Ernest," mumbled Alvin, but a little nagging voice inside his narrow pointed head kept repeating, "Not the longest, not the heaviest, but the first." Sighing, he set off deeper into the plain. By the time he came to a waterhole, Alvin was even more confused. Colin the cheetah had told him as he zoomed past at full speed that he must be first because he was the fastest. Gordon the giraffe had grunted down to him that he must be the first, being the tallest of the Lord's animals. But still, Alvin told himself, the Lord said the first, not the longest, heaviest, fastest, or tallest. What could he have meant? Who could it be? Alvin was sitting on a log, sipping up warm, muddy, but quite refreshing water with his long pink tongue. Then the log spoke. "It is me," it said in a deep, bubbly voice. "Who was that?" inquired Alvin, looking all around and seeing no one. "Me," said the log again. "Casper." "Oh, it's you!" cried Alvin, scuttling quickly back to the soggy but safe bank. The crocodile's mouth gaped open in a snaggle-toothed smile. "Look at my scales," he burbled. "See how hard and bright they are? I am the only one of the Lord's animals with such tough and beautiful armor. I am the toughest, therefore I must be the first. Even an aardvark with claws like long, curved knives does not argue with a crocodile, especially a conceited one. Alvin bumbled away again, but he was still not sure. The longest, the heaviest, the fastest, the tallest, and now the toughest, he said to himself. Which of them is the first of all the Lord's animals? Doubtfully, Alvin wandered homewards over the dry, dusty, sun-scorched plain. Without warning, a small but piercing whisper stopped him dead in his tracks. "Halt, or you die!" It was Scarletta the Scorpion, as she lay, stinger upraised, in the shadow of Alvin's right forefoot. "I have no quarrel with you, Scarletta," gasped Alvin, "nor has anyone with any sense," he thought. "I have been sent by the Lord of all animals to find out who is first of all the animals. Have you any idea?" Scarletta took a long time to answer, and Alvin's leg was getting rather cramped. There was a wicked little glitter in her eye as she spoke. "I will give you a clue," she said. "Which creature is the only one that can kill an animal many times bigger than itself?" Alvin looked down at the evil, poisonous hook quivering on the end of Scarletta's tail. He looked at his poor, cramped foot just above it. "You?" he suggested. "Exactly," whispered Scarletta. "I am the deadliest. Therefore, I am the first of all the animals." With that, she disappeared beneath a large flat stone. Alvin limped slowly but gratefully back towards the edge of the jungle. His stomach was rumbling. He turned to look at a mouth-watering ant heap and was wondering if he had time for a snack, when he bumped into something large, warm, furry, and cross. If you have ever been awakened from a delightful dream by being trodden on by a careless aardvark, you will understand how Leroy felt. Leroy was the local lion, and he was used to being treated with respect. He was not used to being trampled on. "Watch where you're going, you aimless aardvark," he snarled sleepily. "I'm terribly sorry, Leroy," apologized Alvin. "I was thinking about something." "I'll bet that was the first time," replied Leroy nastily. Well, he had just been woken up. "I hope," he said, looking at Alvin and wondering how aardvark tasted, "that this thought was important enough to be worth disturbing my sleep. Lions can be very bad-tempered and big-headed." "Perhaps you can help me?" asked Alvin, tactfully changing the subject. "The Lord of all animals has told me to find out who is first of all animals. He wants my answer by tonight, and it's late already, and everybody I've met thinks they are the first." He waited breathlessly for Leroy to reply. "You silly little creature," sniffed Leroy. "Who is king of the jungle?" "Why, you, of course," replied Alvin quickly. "Well then, that answers your question," snapped Leroy. "And now, if you don't mind." He flopped back onto his side and fell asleep. He had decided that aardvarks looked tough and stringy, and that anything that ate ants was not fit for a lion's dinner. "The Lord said first," Alvin repeated stubbornly to himself as he went slowly back into the jungle. "The first what, kid?" hooted a voice from far above. A storm of banana skins and peanut shells broke over Alvin's head. Then a large, brown, furry shape thudded softly to the ground just in front of him. It was Cardew, the chimpanzee. Alvin told Cardew the whole story. "Your problems are over, kid. He must mean me," chuckled Cardew, scratching comfortably. "Why, with respect," added Alvin, as Cardew's eyes narrowed into a mean expression. "I'm the first, 'cause I'm the cleverest, that's why," chattered Cardew. "Of course, what would an aardvark know about intelligence?" he added, seeing Alvin's doubtful expression. "Ant grubber, bear tail." His insults faded as he swung away through the trees. "Call yourself an animal." Alvin was worried. It was nearly dark. He was nearing home. How sore his feet were. And he still didn't know which animal was first. He knew which was the longest, the heaviest, the fastest, the tallest, the toughest, the deadliest, the proudest, and the most intelligent. But which was the first? It was then that he saw the man. He was dressed all in white, with a funny round hat, and had a kind red face. Blue eyes twinkled through thick spectacles. The man also saw Alvin. "An aardvark!" he cried, jumping to his feet and waving a camera at Alvin. "An aardvark! Look!" He pointed to a large color photograph in a book by his side. "Yes, I'm an aardvark," replied Alvin grumpily. "What's so exciting about that? I'm not the longest, or heaviest, or fastest, or tallest, or toughest, or deadliest, or proudest animal. And I'm certainly not the most intelligent, he added sadly. Never mind, little aardvark, smiled the man kindly. You are the first. What? Yelped Alvin, nearly knocking the poor man off his feet. I am the first? Certainly, replied the red-faced little man. Look in my animal book. Then he took Alvin's picture and explained that he had come to Africa to photograph all the animals in order from A to Z. Had Alvin any idea where he might find a baboon? But Alvin had gone, reaching the door of his burrow just as the last of the sun went down below the mountain tops. You see, Alvin, said a voice, deep as a well and soothing as syrup, you may not be as long or as heavy or as fast or as tall or tough or deadly or proud or even clever, but in one way you are first. Your name would come first in an animal alphabet. All my animals are different, yet I love them all. So in his own way, each one is first, just like you, Alvin. But Alvin was already fast asleep, dreaming of delicious, crunchy, tickly ants.